Hi, guys. Well, from beautiful Salt Lake City, Utah.
It's Thank God I'm Atheist.
the podcast.
I'm Frank Feldman.
And I'm Dan Beecher.
Incoming. Up today, we're asking ourselves a really difficult and kind of important question.
It's a question that I've never, actually given much thought to, other than just sort of knee-jerk reactions.
Sure.
So we're going to give a little more depth to the question. Frank, were we raised in a cult?
Oh, boy. Well, the answer to that will be coming up later.
Yeah, well, we're going to sort it out.
Yeah, we've got a couple online quizzes that are going to help us out.
We'll go into that much depth. The amount of depth, we're going into online quiz levels of depth in our end discussion. So,
in the meantime,
brace yourselves for a deep conversation.
Oh, I don't know where to start. So I watched something really interesting this morning, some video. Dan. I watched the whole thing.
Oh, my.
It was really bizarre. I watched a man get resurrected. They streamed it online. And
wow.
I tuned in. And, this pastor down in South Africa by the name of Alf Lukau.
How did I know it was going to be African? I knew that it was going to be in Africa. Because they love
this kind of stuff.
They love a stunt.
They love a big old
a religious
stunt
in Africa.
So it starts out, and there's this coffin, big coffin, with a guy all dressed in white, and he's laying there, and his mouth's kind of agape in this weird shape, and he kind of... He's just laying there, right?
Sure. And
the minister is kind of walking around. He's getting the crowd. It's outside. He's getting the crowd all riled up, and he's pointing out that this is the wife, and this is the mother of the wife, and this is this person, this is that person, and he's getting the crowd to say, to chant and to chime in and all that kind of stuff.
Sure. You got to work the crowd.
If
you're going to bring somebody back to life, you got to work the crowd.
Well, if you're going to bring somebody back to life, you might not want to run the camera long enough for
to
people
see him breathing?
to watch him breathing. Had to watch his mouth move a few times.
Listen. I have been killed on stage many times. It's hard not to be very obvious about your breathing. Our bodies just kind of...
just kind of have to breathe.
There's a giveaway.
Yeah.
When it comes to being alive.
So anyway, he ends up going over to the guy and sort of very anticlimactically, he shouts at him, "Rise up!" And the guy just sits up.
What?
But he keeps his mouth sort of frozen in this circle, just gape.
Oh my God.
Gape sort of thing.
The picture that Frank has just shown me looks like a zombie in a bathtub.
Yeah.
His mouth is open. It's not
That's
just
a great
sort of...
way of describing
it's not
it.
just hanging open. It's like... like it's alive sort of moment.
But so that's what the mouth is doing. And then the eyes, though. He's an eye actor, Dan. He's got the eyes down. Complete surprise and horror of what's going on. It's fascinating to watch, right? The guy absolutely nails the expression, but then he holds it for too long.
Oh,
he plays that out.
Rookie
it's kind
mistake.
of just a one-note performance, but that note, he plays it so well, right? They take him over to a seat. Now, there were two pieces of video that I watched. I couldn't quite tell sort of how far apart they were between the resurrection and then the pastor feeding the man.
spoon
feeding him, and his mouth is in a weird and then he's starts to eat.
Here comes the airplane.
And he comes back to life. Well, anyway, there are a handful of funeral services, firms, companies, were sort of their services were utilized for this. There was a hearse that was rented.
Oh, sure.
There was a casket that was procured.
Yeah.
And somehow, and this is the thing that I'm not fully grasping, right?
Yeah.
But these companies are saying that they were tricked into participating and that their good name has been dragged through the mud.
Yeah.
They don't participate in resurrections, right?
Or in fake ones,
because
especially.
they don't want to promote resurrections.
No.
They're clearly in the funeral business,
Yeah.
and resurrections are only going to hurt.
Well, I
not
mean,
what they're saying.
No, but it's clear that yes, they wouldn't. They do have a vested interest in people not
In
being
the death
resurrected.
industry, right? They cannot promote resurrection.
They need deaths.
Anyway, these three companies, Kingdom Blue, Kings and Queens Funeral Services, and Black Phoenix, have told the local media that church representatives tricked them.
You know, if you're going to name your company Phoenix, anything to do with a phoenix, you should be pro-resurrection.
You should be pro-resurrection.
I'm just going to say.
Apparently, some people who were posing as family members of this deceased man, told the Kings and Queens Funeral Services that they had a dispute with a different funeral service provider, and that's why they were coming to them. I don't know what this is all about. And they also had placed Black Phoenix stickers on their private car, so that when they went to hire a hearse from them, they would believe them more. It's all very, very, very strange. But anyway,
my God.
the funeral services companies are very upset that they were involved in this horrible, horrible thing.
That's very funny.
Yeah, the whole thing, though, apparently there's also a hashtag that has been trending. Hashtag Resurrection Challenge.
Oh, my God.
So people are doing resurrection challenges now.
Oh, my God.
In response to this, making fun of it.
Yes,
right?
okay.
And so you're supposed to bring somebody back to life
Right.
and hashtag it. And apparently it's, at least in Africa and Africa observing parts of the world,
Yeah.
it's becoming a thing.
There you
Bang.
go. What a very silly thing to have happen.
Yep.
Here in these United States, by the time our listeners hear this, the Supreme Court will have heard arguments about a case that's coming to them. It is to do with a giant concrete/stone cross.
Okay.
Which is in the middle of a roundabout, a traffic roundabout in Maryland outside of D.C.
Okay.
And that is it's a memorial to World War I veterans.
Okay.
And has been there since about that time, almost 100 years. It's been there since 1925.
Oh, okay.
And now the American Humanist Association has brought suit. They lost in the first court and in the district court, and then an appellate court overturned that lower court's decision.
Okay.
Ruling that the monument had, quote, the primary effect of endorsing religion exclusively excessively entangles the government in religion.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. But as we've known from other U.S. Supreme Court cases, length of time that it's been there has become an issue. And so and this Supreme Court, the current lineup, including I like beer, Kavanaugh. I have very low hopes for this particular one, and for future cases that are like this. Now the court has made it clear on numerous occasions that cases like this are a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
They are not something to be taken as precedent for the rest of the country, although that is a concern, because it is precedent.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not to be taken as, it is to be taken as precedent, but it's not to be taken as, like, instructive, like all the crosses have to come down.
Gotcha.
But there have been a lot of cases like this, including here in our own Utah, where the Highway Patrol Association was forced to remove some of its memorial crosses
okay.
because they were on public property.
Right. You mean like the little beside the highway?
Yeah, that sort of thing.
Fallen, whatever.
Right.
Okay.
And of course, people are arguing that forcing the removal of these memorial crosses, it's not helping with. I mean, these are just memorial crosses. They're not Christian symbols. Duh. Obviously, this is what you hear from them: is that it's not a Christian symbol. It's just a memorial symbol. And if you're forced to remove it, then that establishes non-religion as the official religion of the United States.
Oh, God.
Which is the official religion of the United States.
We don't have a state religion.
Right.
By law.
Right. By constitutional law, yes. There is no official religion. So, correct. Non-religion, no religion, not non-religion, but zero religion is our official religion because we don't have one.
Right.
So the default position is 0.
Fine. Okay.
But they don't get it. So obviously it'll be interesting to see. The reason I bring it up as a story for us is that how this court rules on this will be an interesting sort of harbinger of things to come.
Yeah. Well,
and I don't have high hopes.
I know, but cross your fingers anyway. All right, Dan. The International Boxing Association.
Oh, the IBA.
Yes.
I assume that they go by that.
I would think so as well. However, they sort of make the rules for boxing.
Sure. It wasn't the Marquis de Queensberry?
Oh, yeah, no. Actually, I think it's the Amateur International Boxing Association.
Okay, anyway.
The AIBA. They have ruled that hijabs are now okay for women to wear in the ring while pummeling each other.
Great.
It's totally okay. They also have approved a full body form fitting uniform.
Whoa!
That is also in compliance with sort of Muslim standards of dress for women. So yeah, they've decided that they're more than happy to beat you up no matter your religion or restrictive clothing requirements, whatever those might be. They're fine with you. Get in the ring. We'll punch you in the face anyway.
It's fine. So the boxing association is one thing, but I love a religion that says, look, you can punch another person hard as you want.
Yeah.
But if your fucking ankles are showing, you are offending Allah.
Wow.
Yeah.
While being punched.
If your hair is visible, fuck you.
Yeah. I know. But tear her apart.
But yeah, rip her to shreds. Show those Christians, give those Christians what for.
Yeah.
Give those heathens, those infidels.
I know.
A lesson.
But the female Muslim boxers, they're stoked. They're over the moon. Now they get to participate fully in like amateur boxing events and whatnot, where they may not have otherwise been able to.
Yeah,
but a lot of these standards end up being adopted by the IOC, and that's why this matters. The International Olympics Committee.
I mean, it does matter,
and so
I can see that it matters.
Yeah,
it's just fun. I mean, I just wonder if it, like, you get a lady boxer who's Christian and who's anti-Muslim, who's prejudiced.
Yeah,
that might be a motivator for her.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna punch that hijab right off your face, lady.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Well, hopefully it's not on her face.
No, that would be bad.
It's around.
It does feel like we're getting dangerously close to like world wrestling standards. Like we'll have a heel and a baby face.
Are they going to do niqabs or what are they called?
Or burqas, and
they should have a form-fitting burqa, right?
The boxing burqa.
The boxing burqa.
Yeah,
so absolutely. That you can.
I mean, those gloves cover the hands, so that part's great.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
gotta have a belt so that I guess it doesn't matter quite as much if a woman hits below the belt. but it's still probably against the rules.
It's got to be a thing. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to take us to India, where a very interesting story came to light from the RNS.
Oh.
That's
the Religion News Service.
That is the Religion News Service. There is so within Hinduism, there are a series of groups of monks and religious leaders.
Okay.
Called, I think, akaras.
Okay.
And these akaras are, they're sort of monastic orders almost.
Okay.
Of sadhus, which are the sort of holy sages. And there's a new one that's sort of trying to get some traction.
A new order.
A new order.
Okay.
Within Hinduism.
Okay, all right.
It is not accepted by everybody. But Hinduism's not a tremendously centralized thing, so,
right.
You can go a little rogue within Hinduism.
Okay.
And some are accepting, some are not. Now, part of the thing that's interesting about this is that it's drawing on an older Hindu belief from the Mahabharata, which is about a character named Sikhandi, who was born a girl and became a man.
Oh.
And then led, apparently, a trans army into battle and to victory.
What?
A whole army of former girls that became boys.
What?
So there has been in Hinduism for centuries space for this other for almost another gender. This trans concept.
Okay.
Of course, when the Brits got there, they made sure to squash that as best they could, and now there's a lot of trans enmity within India.
Okay.
However, of course, the people, the people like to listen to their in all the world. People listen to their monks. They listen to their religious leaders. But the people they really listen to are their celebrities.
Of course.
So there was a sort of reality TV star named Lakshmi Narayan Tripathi,
okay,
who is trans and went on India's version of Big Brother, I think, or Survivor, or one of those sorts of things.
Okay,
and got a lot of notoriety doing that. Sort of became a star, and has now started a sect of trans monks.
No way.
Yeah. Tripathi, who was raised as a boy and sort of given a lot of shit for being quite effeminate and gay or whatever, and then realized, oh, I'm just a woman, came out as trans, and has been a very active activist for trans rights in India. And trans rights are actually doing okay, at least on paper, in India.
Huh.
India now has for a few years now. There was a ruling by the Supreme Court of India in 2014, which established a third gender. Oh. So that's interesting. They've also decriminalized homosexuality.
But I mean, what is this third gender? Is it like just,
I don't know, it's
not one of the other two, or is it like,
I feel like it's a gender called wiggle room. It's a gender called just leave folks alone.
Sure. All right, that's fine. No, that's great.
Yeah.
Actually.
So anyway, so I just think it's really interesting that her way of sort of addressing this was to sort of rekindle this actually historical notion of Hinduism embracing trans people, and she's from the Brahmin caste,
right,
which castes still matter even though they're not supposed to.
Right.
So which is the priestly caste.
Right.
So she just started a monastic order.
Oh, wow. Well, good
she
for
just
her.
said,
if it's socially acceptable, and so also, how widely accepted is this?
Not.
Okay.
So far, not very widely accepted.
Okay.
There are some other monastic orders that are looking favorably on it. Most aren't. But there's at least one that's very, very liberal. That's worked very hard. That they had a Dalit. They've promoted Dalit people, which is the lowest caste, into priesthood in their group. And so some of the more liberal groups are doing great with it. Other people are absolutely not accepting it. But it's an interesting move to just say, oh, we're one of the monks now, and people and like fans are into it. Like,
And part of this order, I mean, I would assume that they accept trans women and trans men.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Wow, fascinating.
Yeah, it's an interesting.
Do you
thing.
have to be trans in order to be one of the monks?
It seems like it. Yeah.
Okay. That's all very interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
I don't know what to make of it exactly because I don't understand the culture well enough to know what the deeper implications are. But it seems like a really fascinating thing.
One worth paying attention to.
Yeah.
Going forward.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, okay. Well, Dan, my next story is about a Anglican priest in Fresno.
Okay.
Who he had an idea.
Uh-oh. That's when you start with that, it's not a good sign.
I don't know where exactly he got this idea. He claims that he learned this practice, a special ritual, while he was in India, actually.
Oh, okay. Uh-oh.
And he, when working with parishioners of his who were cursed or had sinned in certain ways, he informed them that the only cure was to be rubbed with a sacred oil and to be masturbated by him.
Okay. Yep, there it is. Yeah. Started bad, got worse.
So basically, essentially, their semen needed to be examined by him before they could be healed.
Oh, these are all men.
There has been one woman who has been involved in this thing, but at least 22 potential victims have been identified. They think that the local police think that there could be hundreds more.
Oh, yeah.
But this guy didn't come by his dark arts.
Quote unquote victimhood depends on who you ask. You know what I'm saying? Like some of them, maybe they were into it, so maybe they weren't victims.
Yeah, I know. Who knows? My guess, we'll get into why they were victims in a second. But he came by his dark arts, honestly.
Yeah.
It seems. He started off his life, his professional life, as a Catholic priest.
Mm-hmm. So he started as a Catholic priest.
He started as a Catholic priest, learned all the tricks of the trade.
Sure.
Stopped being a Catholic priest. I don't know why.
Yes, we don't have those records.
They were burned, probably. If you follow the news.
Yeah.
And then he moved over to Anglicanism and found a whole new, fresh flock of people who he was able to manipulate.
Whole new group of victims, congregants.
Well, so he headed this Anglican church by the name of Nuestra Señora de Guadalupe.
Oh.
For the most part, most of these victims were undocumented immigrants.
Yeah.
And he targeted them, police think, because they would be less likely to come forward.
To go to the police, yeah.
Exactly. Report these crimes to the
police.
Brilliant.
Look, if you want to victimize some people, find yourself a good marginalized group that's afraid of the police anyway.
Yeah. Well, and this, I need to look into this, but apparently if you are undocumented and you need to, and you're the victim of mental or physical abuse, and you're willing to cooperate with police, you can apply for a U visa, which takes away the risk of being deported because you came forward to the police.
Interesting.
I don't know entirely what all of that means, but the Fresno Police Department is asking for people to come forward, and they're like, "Listen, you don't have to.
Yeah,
we're not going to deport you just because you come forward. We're going to try to help you out."
Which you know, if you're undocumented, you probably still don't believe them.
You probably don't.
Because they're tricks.
Right.
There's a lot of tricks.
Yeah. Anyway.
Well, there you go. That's
absolutely amazing.
Shocking that a priest would victimize people like that. But, I mean, nice.
But also, like...
Nice that he incorporated some like, Indian mysticism into his abuse.
Absolutely.
Into his rape.
And let me tell you, though. He also was... He's in his 50s. He at least was age appropriate. Which is not always the case.
You're saying he did it to adults.
54-year-old, a 45-year-old, 43-year-old.
There you go.
It doesn't take away the fact that they're victims.
No.
At all. I'm making a joke.
Right. But it is nice that it's not children.
It's really good that it's not children.
Feels relief. It feels like
refreshing.
It is refreshing. Oh, you only victimized grown folk. That's great. Good for you, buddy.
Hopefully they have a little bit more, I don't know.
Yeah.
They're victims. I don't even want to say anything.
Speaking of victims, sort of, here's an interesting thing. It's good news. I want to close
good news about victims?
With some good news, which is to say that YouTube... I don't know if you've heard of this. It's one of those websites, and they show the videos.
Is this on the www?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a series of tubes.
Okay.
Anyway, YouTube has decided that they have taken away. They're not kicking videos off of their platform for being anti-vax.
Okay.
But they're not letting anti-vax videos get advertising dollars.
Oh, good. Oh, well, okay.
So, yeah, that's an interesting distinction to be made.
Yeah.
But at least it's not, I don't know, at least there's not a profit motivation to keep putting that bullshit out there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So how much anti-vax videos we're making?
I'm guessing plenty of them were making a lot.
Jesus.
Because, I mean, it's one of those things where that's the kind of... The kind of position that people want to the people who have bought into it, they want to share stuff. So they you know they'll go to their Facebook page or whatever and share one of these videos to prove how right they are,
right,
or whatever. So I mean the videos are still out there, but the video makers cannot make money off of them. So.
It's a step.
It's a step
in the right direction.
Yeah, I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah, it
feels like something more needs to be done. I'm not sure what that next step would be. Because I don't know. Do you just have the videos removed?
Yeah, it does. I mean, the thing is that these are you know, this anti-vaccination content is it's harmful. It does harm.
Yeah, it is.
And so. To my mind, there's got to be a way. I mean, it clearly violates their policies.
Yeah.
So they have policies in place that say this does harm.
Right.
Why can't you just remove the videos then?
Yeah, I think they.
I mean, what happened was.
I feel like they probably should.
First of all, YouTube hates doing any kind of policing.
Yeah.
They don't like to do it at all, even when it's really disgusting stuff that's out there.
Yeah.
But. When advertisers go to them, and this is what happened first was advertisers started going to them and saying, "Hey, you can't put our ads on these videos."
Good for those companies.
Yeah,
actually.
Yeah, I mean, what probably happened before that is that consumer advocate groups were writing to the advertisers and saying, "Hey, do you know that your ads are running on these things?" Right. And then, so I mean, that's the interesting domino effect. But apparently, until money's involved, nobody does anything. Until there's a risk of losing money,
right? Nobody
changes anything.
Huh? That's interesting. Well, all right.
But there you go. That's some small good news out there in the world. Anyway, if you guys have anything you'd like to say about anything that we've talked about, I don't know if you have been making money off of anti-vax, you can write to us podcast@thankgodimatheist.com.
Or call and leave us a voicemail message. The telephone number is 424-666-8442.
Yeah, go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/TGIAtheist, and click on that like button.
And while on Facebook, search for the TGIA Members Only Lounge and request to join. It is a closed group, but we'll let you in. And also search for, or also look on Twitter and Reddit. Our handle is TGIA. Dan,
Ooh,
I have a
yes?
special treat
Oh,
for you and all of our listeners.
I know. It's so great.
We have not heard from this man for quite a while, and he really was the one who got the whole thing going for us.
He was our favorite. He's a perennial joy for us.
Mr. Pat Robertson.
Patty boy. It's a patty break. It's an official patty break.
It's an official patty break. So he is upset specifically.
Oh, he's so mad
about there was this story about a Catholic adoption agency that did not whose contract wasn't renewed with the city of Philadelphia because the agency refused to follow the city's non-discrimination policy. Oh. So this is what he's talking about. That's the context for what he's talking about. So let's just listen in on what he has to say.
The incredible thing about the homosexuals is they are willing to destroy lives and destroy the whole fabric of society so long as they and their weird way of doing sex is legitimized. That's what they want, and they will to take away everything. They'll destroy marriage, they'll destroy families, they'll destroy in this case, the foster children. They're willing to tear down the entire edifice in order to have the majority of people recognize the way they do sex. That's what it amounts to. And 1%, ladies and gentlemen, get it, 1% of the country, from what we understand, are lesbian, 2% are homosexuals. And that is all. And yet that 2% and 1% are taking charge of the rest of us because they're so vocal and so authoritative, and they apparently dominate these legislative bodies. I think if Christians begin to speak out and insist that if some politician goes along with the gay agenda, that they're going to be voted out of office. And once they get that message, they'll start saying, well, we want to listen to the majority of the people in our society. Until they do, that small minority is going to be dominating everything we do in every aspect of our lives. Mark my word, it's going to happen.
Oh, my God.
Damn it, Frank! Why are you so willing to destroy families? Just because of your weird way of doing sex?
I know. Well, let me tell you, first of all, it's not just weird, it's also really good.
It's also hot.
It's also hot.
It's like so hot.
Because I like dominating who's supposedly being dominated? All the straight people, right? The legislatures.
Yeah, oh, yeah. You're just, boy.
I get off on the domination. That's what it's all about.
Also, his numbers are off. According to a Gallup poll that I just pulled up, 4.5% of American adults identify as gay.
Yeah. That feels about right.
Oh, actually, no, because that includes lesbian, gay, bisexual, or trans.
Yeah.
So who knows? A, it doesn't matter, and B, who calls it weird way of doing sex? Seriously,
well,
if you phrase something, I don't like how you do sex. What the fuck are you talking about?
It's Pat Robertson. He's ancient.
Oh,
that was the most polite way he could come up with saying it.
Doing sex. I shuddered.
And by polite, I mean that the old women listening in at home could tolerate.
I shudder to think of his method of doing sex.
I guarantee you it's weird.
Terrifying to me.
It's got to be weird.
Oh my God. Yeah.
That man.
He likes. He has a cadre of 7 very young people dress up as children with like little lollipops, and he makes them all confess their sins to him or something gross. Trust me, the way that man does sex, it's wrong in all sorts of ways.
That's what you came up with?
That's what I came. Oh, yeah. I don't know. Just off the top of my head.
We are the Lollipop Guild.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know he's got Munchkin. He's got a Munchkin fetish.
His dungeon just looks like the Munchkin Village.
That's right. He's got a yellow brick road downstairs. The guests don't get to go downstairs.
No. Oh, my God. Oh, that's amazing. We'll do,
there you go. We got some folks that wrote into us.
Yes.
Let me, I'll start this. This was unsigned. It says, I listened to a girl who had issues with her family because she is gay. The issue makes me think about something I have heard and something that does not make sense. It sounds like when Mormons have a family that they expect all of their children to live with them in the afterlife. Mm-hmm. At the same time, they seem to also believe that a wife will move with her husband in the afterlife. It sounds very much like you would end up with a tangled mess. Is that ever talked about, or is there something that I'm missing?
That's what the millennium is for.
Okay, let me tell you something. You're not missing anything. Well, what you're missing makes matters worse.
Yeah.
Because the Mormon afterlife is completely illogical.
Yeah, it's a total disaster.
We're all going to be together forever. All of our family, all of my kids, my mom, my dad, everyone's going to be together forever. But yes, also, you and your wife or wives.
Hopefully wives.
Because
if you're a good righteous man,
if you're righteous
wives,
you take your wives and you guys go off and do your whole own creation because you are now a god.
Yeah.
So, yes, you're all together, but definitely completely separate.
Yeah.
Because you're off in your own universe that you're creating, making your own spirit people and making your own planet and making...
right, but when you go home after a long day's work...
Everybody's there.
Everybody's there.
After a long millennium's worth of work. Yeah. They're all there having some cocoa around the fire.
Oh, it's great. Yeah. It's wonderful.
It's a very confusing afterlife the Mormons have set up for themselves because there's 3 or 4 different things that definitely conflict.
Oh, yeah.
It's a goofball sort of system. There are kingdoms. There's these different kingdoms of glory, and there's no sense of like how that applies. How are you in a kingdom of glory, in a heaven,
right? And
then also off on your own making a universe.
Well, but the lower 2 kingdoms aren't off making their own universes,
right? But the highest kingdom is I don't know. Is that just? I mean, is the celestial kingdom kind of just like Club Med that you keep coming back to? It's a timeshare. You've got a timeshare in heaven, but you're off doing your own thing.
So Dan, it's beyond human comprehension.
It's certainly
the mortal mind cannot comprehend.
It's definitely
the true glory
beyond my comprehension.
Upon glory, of the celestial kingdom.
You're right. I can't.
Which is why they represent it in this life with the same decor of a Marriott lobby.
Yes, indeed. So. It's so beautiful, you'll be bored to tears. All right. Do you want to do a voicemail?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have a listener who called in, responding specifically about how we shared the story of the guy who he did Facebook ads, right, to target his family members, who were still believers.
Yeah.
I think it was specifically the Mormon Church, right?
Yeah.
And so she just has a response.
And we had interesting response. We weren't sure how we felt about it.
Hey guys, this is Amanda, and I was just listening to your episode on targeted ads, and I love how you guys were saying that it's manipulative and you didn't know whether or not it was right or something like that. And you mentioned how Russia, screwed with stuff, but you forgot to mention that religion is manipulative, like the biggest manipulator of all time. So honestly, I think he's just, bringing it back around, doing the Lord's work, as you could say. So thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
That's a good point.
It's one of those things where Yes, you're absolutely right. That the great manipulators are the religions of the world.
Yes.
Does that mean we should play in that same sandbox? I don't know. Like, because
Tit for tat, Dan.
because they're doing it, we should do it. I'm not convinced of that. When we look at them and say, haha, evil tactics, I don't know that our best bet is to go, so we're going to do it just as well as you do.
All right, fair enough, Dan.
I don't know.
I still think it's a good idea because all you're doing is targeting specific information.
Yeah.
You're not lying to them.
Nope.
Right?
No. And I'm actually not opposed to this. But there's something in it that makes me a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And then something else in it that makes me want to target my family members.
All right.
There you go.
Another
I'm
voice
conflicted.
or another email, Dan?
Yeah, we got one more email. Hi, Frank and Dan. Whenever you talk of the Southern Baptists, I can't help thinking of this. I used to work about 2 blocks from where they held their convention in Atlanta. The local restaurants hated to see them come to town. The usual comment was, "Those bastards don't think they should tip."
Right.
You've been in the restaurant industry.
The religious folks don't really tip.
They're the worst.
There's a lot of stereotypes out there about who tips and who doesn't tip. I would say that one probably holds fairly true.
Yeah. And you'll hear things like, "I give the Lord 10%. Why should I give you 20?" or something like that. Like,
yeah, I think you see stuff. I hope nobody's ever said that to their server.
oh no, I've heard that directly from people who were serving and who got that, which is, or rather, they get it written down because these people are too big of a coward to actually say it to somebody's face.
Right.
Because the truth is, one thing has nothing to do with the other. And a server's not asking for 20% of your income.
Right.
Dipshit.
In order to eat here,
Yes, I need.
give me 20% of everything you have.
I need a double tithe, please, of your increase, sir. Yeah, no, that's not what they're asking for, dummy. If you can't tip, you can't afford to go out to eat.
Yeah, exactly. As far as this country is concerned.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I would actually love it if we got rid of tipping.
But that would mean you'd
industry.
have to be paying the servers a living wage.
And I'm all for that.
Which would increase drastically the cost of the menu items.
And I'm all for that.
And I'm there with you, Dan. I just think that there would be an adjustment period that people were very uncomfortable with.
Yes.
And then they would realize, oh, wait, I'm still spending the same amount.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Yeah.
But I would also, over time, I would also suspect that restaurant owners who are tend to be, they watch the bottom line. Let me put it that way.
Yes.
That's the most politic way I could possibly say that. They watch the bottom line very closely because it's a very thin margin, right? And I'd be worried about those servers' wages just eroding over time. I think the system that we have actually probably means that our servers in this country get paid the most that they could ever get paid in this country.
Yeah, maybe.
Because of how wages
because they're cheapskates.
Yeah, and we don't pay our workers well and whatnot. So anyway,
Yeah.
That's my take on tipping and why I think it's actually a good thing in this country. But,
Sure.
All right. Dan.
Yo.
People to thank.
Oh, yeah, good.
We have some new patrons on Patreon.
Oh, good.
We have one new faithful listener.
Okay.
Travis. Thank you, Travis.
Great.
We have 2 new venerable listeners.
Oh, peace be upon you.
Christopher and Slarty Barfast.
Hooray!
Thank you to both of you. And we have a new member of the Pantheon. This is the new thing, Dan.
Yeah.
This is the new thing. 7 strong now.
Oh.
Our top tier donors.
Yes.
Right?
The new one is
Melissa.
Hooray for Melissa! Blessed be she among all the saviors.
All the lords and saviors.
Yeah.
So, this now makes up, or these are the names that make up the Pantheon.
Yes.
Melissa, Jash, Scott, Dee, Hannah, Liz, and Judy. So thank you all. All of these kind folk actually went to our website, thankgodimatheist.com, and clicked on the support tab. That took them over to their choice, either PayPal or Patreon.
Right.
These folks that I just mentioned went to Patreon, where there are rewards, there's levels of support that you can opt into and select how we thank you.
Yes.
for your support.
There have been controversies on Patreon recently, and some people are grumpy about that. So if you don't like Patreon, that's fine. Go, you can do it through PayPal as well.
That's totally acceptable. And we can't thank all of you enough for the support.
Yes.
And it makes the continued success of the show possible. And so we thank you from the bottoms of our hearts. Dan.
Yes?
I fear our childhoods might have been spent in a cult.
In a cult? Well, okay.
Is that a weird... How does that make you feel? If I say that.
If the conclusion of this segment is that we grew up in a cult, that feels fucking weird.
Feels weird, yeah. Because here's the deal. When I think of a cult, I think of like David Koresh,
right,
and the Branch Davidians,
or
something like that.
Or I think of the people in red and that were following what's his name? In Oregon.
Yeah, what was that called? The Wild Country,
Wild Country people. Yeah,
the
Bershwashis, the Pishwashis, the Squishquashis. I don't remember.
Grenashis?
The Grenashis. That's right.
That's what it was. Yeah, no, those folk, shit like that.
Yeah,
where people kind of have like dazed look in their eyes,
or like the Heaven's Gate people or something.
Yeah,
I imagine
they all commit suicide.
Sure,
and they all wear the same sneakers
or locally
and sweatsuits until they kill themselves.
I
assume it. Yeah.
I think of people sitting in a very ramshackle environment, listening to a person who's a very engaging personality.
Yeah,
but who's very clearly, to most of us, very clearly Looney Tunes.
Right. But the thing is, especially I'm seeing it a lot now, like on the ex-Mormon subreddit, which I look at from time to time. Used to be quite the big fan of it, and then every once in a while they get on some kick of just posting selfies and I get annoyed. Right. So anybody out there who like looks at it, you know what I'm talking about. But they throw the cult word around a lot.
Yes.
On that. They talk about getting out of the cult. They've been out of the cult now 3 years or something along those lines, right?
And for my
everybody
money,
knows what they mean.
And for my money, up until recently, every time I heard that, I just thought, you've got a chip on your shoulder. I understand that, but I mean, it's a fairly major world religion, does it? Yeah, I don't think you can qualify it as I never felt like it was a cult. Whatever.
I think calling it a world religion is generous.
I mean, it's one of the most wealthy religions in the world.
Sure,
and they have
adherents out into countries throughout the world,
all over the place.
I know.
So I mean, I feel like
you need a few more than the few millions that they have. I don't know. I don't know why I feel
there's
that
many
way.
Mormons as there are Jews.
To be major.
Judaism is a major world religion, and
I suppose so.
I feel like Mormons have as many as Jews do.
Okay, fair enough.
Demographically,
that's a good point.
So this is the trick, right? This is the conversation that we have to have because, they've got, by their own estimation, 14, 15 million people, probably a lot fewer than that would actually consider themselves Mormon because they're counting a lot of people who have left but not officially resigned from the church.
Okay.
A lot of children who were baptized at age 8. A lot of people who were baptized as children and then just have never been a part of it since, sort of thing. However, so anyway, the idea is if we look at it, so growing up in it, it never felt like a cult to me. I assumed that it was just a religion. Like
you assumed that it was the true one and true church.
Well, yes, I did believe that.
That it was a special connection to God.
But even after I left, I was like, well, I left a religion. I left so like the question becomes, what is a cult? What marks a cult? And demographers will talk about number of adherents or whatever, but that I don't think that's the key.
I don't think so either. I think that it's the lingering psychological effects. That's something to look at.
Yes,
right.
I think and it's how it's operated. It's how
culturally does it disconnect itself from its neighbors, from the larger community.
Sure.
I like that's the kind of thing that I think about when I think about a cult.
Yeah. So it's the culture. What's the culture of your cult?
Can you question your leadership?
Right.
I think that's a pretty big one.
How much I think so. I've looked at a few. We teased that we had looked at a few like online things that were like, yeah. I found a couple of articles that were titled things like "The 7 Signs You're in a Cult," which is funny to me because what it means is that people are actually Googling, am I in a cult? Wait a minute. I don't think so, but am I in a cult? Which is funny and probably happens a lot.
Unfortunately.
Because, the thing is that when people enter a cult, they don't enter to be part of something weird and dangerous.
Well, you don't think, there's nothing cult. You're not thinking, oh, this is a cult, but I think I'm going to join up. This cult's a little different.
Right. This one's cute. Look at the robes.
Yeah,
I'm super into this cult.
Yeah.
No, what you see is a bunch of people who are telling you that they're super happy, who love their message, and who are like you need to meet our leader because he's amazing.
Right.
And it's always a he. Almost always a he.
And then it turns out, yeah, he is amazing.
Right. Yeah, you meet
charismatic.
You meet the leader, or you meet someone who's like, you see some videos of the leader, and you're like, wow. And then and they have something to offer you. But I mean, so the question is, you and I were raised Mormon in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's a group that's been around for less than 200 years.
That's true.
So is it a cult?
Yes.
So, and we're done. I'm gonna do a couple of these lists from online.
Yeah. Okay,
and I want us to talk about them. This one was sort of a very general one, so I kind of liked it because it was like, ugh. Some of these lists of questions made me say yes. Some of them made me say no. We weren't raised in a cult.
Okay.
This one is from CBS News website. They did some stories about a cult in Australia and stuff, but then they sort of went to an expert and just said, "What are the signs of a cult?" And this expert, a person named Eichel, what's the first name? I don't have it anyway. Said these things.
Okay.
Beware of any kind of pressure. That's probably the single most important advice that I can give. Any kind of pressure to make a quick decision about becoming involved in any intensive kind of activity or organization.
That's amazing. So when I was on my mission, it was still customary, required at the time, that during the second discussion, so the second time you've ostensibly been seated with this investigator,
right,
you're asking them to be baptized.
I think it's the first one now.
Is it the first?
Or it's either the first or the second.
I always thought that it was the second.
It's quick.
Because the first one, you ask them to read the Book of Mormon. That's how it used to be.
Right. And then they don't, and then you say, well, get baptized anyway.
I think it was the second. But I'm not, but again,
it's quick.
It's like the first or second.
And it's a high-pressure sales pitch.
It was all designed to be high pressure. Yeah.
So I think the Mormons, they're missionary. They send out missionaries, and they put the pressure on.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's and that is not just, they don't leave it to the missionary to decide when to ask, do you think you want to join this church? Do you want to be a part? Do you want to be baptized?
Right.
They tell the missionaries when they have to do it, and it's the second time they meet you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think they failed on this one.
Yeah.
I'm going to go down the line a little bit.
Okay.
Be wary of any leader who proclaims him or herself as having special powers or special insight, and of course, divinity.
Check, and pretty much check.
Divinity, I'm not gonna check.
Yeah, but they get to be gods.
They get to eventually become divine.
They're not gods now.
They're not claiming godhood, and they're not claiming infallibility. But the leaders of the church do claim basically a direct line to Jeebus.
Yeah.
So yeah, and of course it was founded by a man who had all kinds of amazing stuff, and sort of the only truth.
Right. Okay.
So only truth is scary.
Yeah.
So there you go. Another thing, the group is closed. So in other words, although there may be outside followers, there's usually an inner circle that follows the leader without question and that maintains a tremendous amount of secrecy.
I would say yeah. To a certain extent.
To a certain extent, they've worked fairly hard to be more open. I think in recent times.
Sure.
So, but I mean, you think about the temple ceremony. You think about there are things that they say aren't secret; they're sacred.
Right.
But that means they're secret.
Right. And then if you've ever looked into any of like the second anointing crap, which is not your normal mainstream Mormonism stuff,
but it's real.
But it's real, and it happens, and people who are sort of at a certain level in the church get brought into this inner circle, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They do stuff like that.
And there's definitely stuff that they won't talk about with outsiders. And there's an insularity there. I'm going to give them a 50-50 on that one.
It's there. It smacks of it.
It does smack of it. Although, for a day-to-day Mormon, you don't have to be secretive. You know what I mean? Like, you're not too secretive. You're not hiding a lot of shit from your neighbors or whatever.
No.
You're not worried about your neighbor like coming. They'll invite you to their services. Like almost everything that they participate in on a day-to-day basis, everybody could come to. So I don't think it's that all right. Secretive. The group uses deceptive means typically to recruit new members, and then once recruited, will subject its members to an organized program of thought reform, or what most people refer to as brainwashing.
So here's the deal. I mean, they do hold a lot back. When you think about where people are at with their knowledge level of sort of the broader beliefs of the Mormon Church,
right?
When they're being baptized,
right?
When they're actually being brought in and joining up to the church, they don't know about garments, they don't know about the temple,
right?
Typically. If they know about the temple, it's in very broad terms. They don't know that there's like these secret ceremonies that go on inside of it.
It's just that it's a beautiful place where sacred things happen.
Right.
And it's a privilege to go.
Right. Like, there's a lot that's held back. You don't know what you're joining up with when you first join. And I remember my dad talking about a few of those moments when he learned about, like...
Because your dad was a convert.
My dad was a convert. And my dad sort of, he admitted that he had problems with parts of the Joseph Smith story when he found out more about it. So forth and so on.
It is interesting. So, I mean, there's a psychological thing that happens that salespeople will talk about.
Right.
But there's a psychological thing that happens where once you've given your buy-in to something, you're more likely to accept new information as being okay. Whereas if you haven't given your buy-in yet, if you haven't declared I'm going to be on this team, you're more likely to be like, oh, I'm put off by that. Maybe this isn't real.
Right.
So in that sense, there's a pretty deep manipulation that's happening there.
And they're very willing to take sort of the low value convert instead of the high value convert, right? In sort of just for the mass numbers of the whole thing, right? So like, and what I mean by that is the low value convert is somebody who who essentially doesn't know a lot about the church and who is going to probably fall away. Right?
Yeah, they're
versus a high value person who has truly investigated and truly looked at all the warts and really considered it. And what does it mean to be a member of this community?
read the book.
They understand their place and what their lives are going to be like after joining,
and
that person's going
decision.
to stick around. Right.
But they're fine with I mean, what they want is the dunk.
Yeah, they want the mass. They want the big numbers.
Yeah.
That's what they're going for.
Which is interesting because the fact that they're willing to let people... This may be... That fact may actually play against the idea of this being a cult. Because they want the numbers, but they're not... They don't care that a lot of these people are falling away from the church.
But they do care. You know, and as soon as a convert does buy in, like you take like somebody like my father, right? Like... He is committed.
Yeah, he is.
To that church, right?
Yeah.
It worked. It worked with him.
Yeah, I'm just saying that
he was sort of their perfect convert.
Yeah. He's the kind that they love.
Oh yeah.
But what I'm saying is like somebody who was a Catholic in South America or Central America and just sort of they introduce them to a couple of things about Mormonism that they like. You know, your family gets to be together forever, and also
which they probably already thought,
right? Yeah,
they had to be told.
But whatever the sales pitch is for South America,
right?
You catch somebody, they're like, okay, I'm interested. You push them on the baptism thing, they get baptized, then they find out, oh well, we don't smoke, we don't drink. We have all of these restrictive things. And then that person just stops going. They're not that. I mean, they'll send out somebody maybe to say, hey, what's going on? But they're not working that hard. They're not like,
I don't know what the deal is.
We need to shun them, or we need to guilt them into coming back, or we need to, it's not that intense the way it is with a lot of religions.
I don't know what the deal is with South America. Right. And how it turned into just this big numbers game.
Right.
Where it's just converts. And they're not really converts. They're baptisms.
Right.
But I know, the converts that did happen in, say, like Italy, where I was on my mission.
Right.
These were people who they were hooked. Right.
Yeah.
I didn't have any baptisms of my own, but I knew a couple of the newer members.
Right.
And of course there were always those that fell away and whatnot. But not sort of the same thing as what was happening in South America, where 1 in 100 would actually stick.
Right.
Or whatever the numbers might be.
Right.
I mean, and these are people who they were buying into, the life, they,
right.
And in the course of the discussions, at least back then, the word of wisdom comes into it.
Right.
Like when you're joining up, you can't smoke, you can't drink alcohol, you can't.
Which,
have to
it's
give up
impressive
coffee.
When an Italian gives up wine.
And
that's
coffee.
Yeah.
And cigarettes.
Oh yeah. That's an impressive moment.
Yeah.
That's a commitment.
Yeah.
They're actually committing to a thing.
But you're committing to these way of life things rather than the beliefs and the
Yeah.
It's very weird.
But you don't commit to I don't know. You don't commit to the way of life unless the beliefs make sense, it seems like.
But they're very basic beliefs. It's just about God.
Right.
And you got these young kids who are just pulling you in.
Right.
And
which
you're
is so
responding
funny.
to that
Who is
somehow.
listening to fucking 19-year-olds from a different country? Like, what the fuck does that...
Yeah, I know.
Oh, my God.
Okay, keep going.
We'll go to the next one. Typically, cults also exploit their members, mostly financially.
Yep.
Within the group, they'll exploit members financially, psychologically, emotionally, and all too often sexually.
Yeah.
I would say... Well, okay, so...
Maybe not the sexually.
I would say not sexually.
Back in the foundation of the Mormon Church. Yes.
Yeah, that could be said. That could be when you
They grew out of that one.
When you got a founder that's marrying, tens of people, tens of women, and some of them underage and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And but now, not so much. Financially, is it exploitive? Because every church asks for tithes. This church is especially good at getting a full tithe out of all of their members.
Full tithe plus.
Plus, that's true.
Right.
So a full
tithe will get you into the temple.
A full tithe is expected of everybody, children included.
Right.
If someone gives you $1, you're expected to give a dime.
Right.
That's just expected.
Yeah, I had to pay tithing on my allowance.
Right.
That money was getting double tithed. Let's face it.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, your dad was paying it on his income and then giving you money, and then you're paying it on your increase.
Yeah.
So that's messed up. But but tithing, I don't think, is an exploitation. That's just membership dues. And then you're expected to do some more, but you're not required. I don't know.
I think your perspective on tithing might be. I mean, there are the idea of membership dues, fine, right?
I'm just saying it's all the major religions have a tithe
of some sort. And some are more coercive than others and blah, blah, blah. But and that's maybe, I think that the way that the Mormons have tied the tithing to the temple and being able to go to your child's wedding. Right. You have to be up on your tithing.
And people will know that you're not there if you don't go.
So there's the embarrassment factor, and
it's not just your children.
Parent wants to be at their child's wedding,
but it's not just your children. It's like any wedding, any Mormon wedding that occurs.
I'm using that as an example,
but I'm saying like your niece, your nephew,
coercive.
It is very coercive. They have really good, strong tactics in place to enforce you doing it, and you have to go to your bishop every year, and like face to face be asked, are you paying a full tithe?
Right.
And then you have to answer that question.
Right.
It's a pretty powerful tool.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty strong manipulation. I'm going to give that a 50%.
I give it more than that.
Okay. A very important aspect of a cult is the idea that if you leave the cult, horrible things will happen to you.
Mm-hmm.
This is important, and it's important to realize people outside of a cult are potential members, so they're not looked upon as negatively as people inside the cult who leave the cult.
Right.
All right. Within Utah, I think I think a lot of this is different when you're in Utah than when you're out of Utah.
Okay.
But people who leave the Mormon Church. Now, you left from a family that was not inside of Utah.
Correct.
There were never Utah Mormons.
Never.
What did you expect from your family before you told them you were leaving the church?
I knew that they it wouldn't be on the terms of shunning.
Okay.
Right.
So you believed that your family would still love you and embrace you, or
no?
Okay.
No. When I say it was not in terms of a full shunning, I knew there would be continued contact. I knew that wouldn't be disowning.
Okay.
Right. But everything but disownment. Right.
You expected.
Yeah.
I was in a very liberal Mormon family, and didn't have I didn't have any doubt in my mind that me leaving the church that I knew that wouldn't be a wedge in my family. But I do know people who left the church, and it was a huge problem.
Right. But let's not just look at family. What happens when an adult couple with a couple kids, they've got their Mormon social life, blah, 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 right?
Yeah, most of their friends
all their friends are Mormon. Let's face it.
Their kids' friends are all Mormon.
That family leaves the church. Where did their social life just go?
Yeah.
Right? Those friends are gone.
Oftentimes.
I would say most of the time.
But
they might get a couple. They might have a couple truly tight friends who are willing to stick around.
Right.
But as far as just their normal little social network, it crumbles.
Right.
It
Well,
falls apart.
the main places where you see these friends,
right.
church functions, you see them twice a week.
Right.
You see them once at church,
right,
and then once at a church event, a church function, because the Mormon Church has a lot of they eat up a lot of your time.
Yes.
So that's interesting.
And so, in my mind, that's all making the point of they've designed your social life to be so wrapped up in the church, right?
Right.
That when you leave,
that
whether it's because of an official attitude of shunning, which is not part of Mormonism,
right.
They don't preach shunning.
No.
But whatever the mechanisms are, that whether it's the people who are just like, oh God, we don't want them in our lives anymore because they're not Mormon, or they're bad people now, or it's just you don't have the opportunities to see these people because their whole lives are wrapped up in the church.
Right. Now, there is some shunning
that happens.
That's how
the mechanism works.
There's cultural shunning, even when the church itself doesn't promote this.
Mm-hmm.
Some people, this wasn't my experience, but I know of plenty of people for whom, their kids couldn't play with other kids because these people didn't want their kids playing with non-Mormon kids.
That's really common. You hear that one all the time.
You hear that one here in Utah.
Yeah.
Less so, though, outside of Utah.
Yes, less so, but at the same time, like I think about growing up and in sort of our situation where there were Mormon families around, there were a lot of kids that were my age. I mean, that's who my best friends were.
Sure.
Especially after a certain age, like really young, like kindergarten, first grade, second grade, I had best friends who were just kind of neighborhood kids. But then as time progressed, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, kind of working our, up through that, it's like the best friends started getting substituted out with Mormon kids.
Right.
Right. And that was where, we weren't even close to being a majority.
Right.
Right. We were very much a minority of the kids at that school, and we just started only having our best friends be other Mormons.
Yeah.
And you learn it young.
I mean,
right?
So Mormonism on this front, there's a cultural thing there. I mean, so it's not like Jehovah's Witnesses where there's a prescribed shunning that occurs.
Right.
And I think that's where Jehovah's Witnesses, they start to look really bad in terms of asking about a cult.
Right.
On that front.
Right.
Mormonism has a cultural thing that happens. So again, I'm going to give them it's not 100%. It's a cultural thing.
But
rather
isn't
than
it
a
almost more
doctrinal thing?
insidious that it is cultural, and it's not just cultural where everybody's Mormon, right?
Right.
Somehow there's something within it. Right, there's something that's happening, and what those things are exactly, I don't know. I can't say, but it was happening for me even well outside of the Mormon Belt.
Sure,
right.
It's interesting.
I think that shows that maybe it's more insidious. They don't even have to say that you have to shun. And if you point blank ask them, they'd say, no, you need to love them more.
Right.
Right? For, the ones that are leaving, those are the ones you should love more. But isn't it ironic that just always happens?
Well, and if somebody leaves the church and has the temerity to say, here's why I left the church.
Oh, yeah.
And says anything that sounds like it's against the church, those people will just not want to be around you because they've been so coached never to listen to quote anti-Mormon rhetoric.
Right.
So suddenly you're their enemy.
Right.
Even if you were their friend, just by saying like the reasons why you were leaving or the things that you don't like about the church, if you say any of those things to them, they will start to get a dark feeling inside.
I can feel the adversary.
It's I don't feel the spirit. I really want to like them, but I don't feel the spirit when I'm around them. And it just feels so. I just don't. And then they stop hanging out.
Yeah,
they just sort of slowly disappear.
Yeah,
quietly.
Were there any other questions on this one?
No, that was that list. There are other lists that get way more intense.
Yeah.
Where if you ask these questions, I think the Mormon Church holds up as not a cult. So, for instance, no tolerance for questions or critical inquiry. That's something that I think Mormonism tolerates it. They don't like it. That I give Mormonism a 50-50 on that one again.
That's kind of funny. Okay.
But like
I think they're very intolerant, but
yeah,
real honest inquiry. They have it set up so the inquiry looks like it's honest,
right?
But
that's true. You know what? They're not
hold back so much information. And there's so much information that is honest that is not allowed.
Matter of fact, there was a recent talk given by one of the leaders of the church, someone in the Quorum of the 70, I think, who was saying, he basically said, there's a lot of questions that we don't have answers for, and we just don't ask those questions now. We just don't talk about them.
Exactly.
So absolute authoritarianism without meaningful accountability. There's no accountability for the authorities of the church at all.
Yeah.
So maybe it doesn't hold up there. No meaningful financial disclosure regarding budget expenses. Yeah, they don't have any
completely closed off.
Unreasonable fear about the outside world, such as impending catastrophe, evil conspiracies, and persecutions. They're more benign on that front.
Little bit. People who are not Mormon tend, in sort of their minds, to not like the Mormon Church and to be antagonistic.
Right, but they're less likely to. I mean, when you think in terms of like a Charles Manson group.
No, and I completely hear you, but I very, very low score in that area, but there is a score there.
It shows up on the chart, for sure. Let's see. There is no legitimate reason to leave. Former followers are always wrong in leaving, negative or even evil. It's definitely showing up. Yeah, for sure.
That one hits hard, actually.
Yeah. Let's see. Former members often relate it. Or often relate the same stories of abuse and reflect a similar pattern of grievances. It's less abusive. Yeah. There is abuse. Yeah. There is abuse within it, but it's less. That's not why people are leaving, really. Right. So that one is less of a thing. There are records, books, news articles, or television programs that document the abuses of the groups or leader.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's out there.
That's there. Followers feel they can never be good enough. Well,
absolutely. That's a 10.
But that's
10.
That's kind of like most religions are like that. Most religions love to play in that sandbox of
they like it. Mormons are fucking good at it.
Well, yeah, that's true. The leader is always right.
Yes.
Pretty much. They don't claim infallibility, but if it's spoken by the prophet over the pulpit, you kind of got to go with it.
Well, it's that whole, and they're trying to, anyway, yeah.
And then, let's see, the leader is, or the group is the exclusive means of knowing truth or receiving validation. No other process of discovery is really acceptable or credible. I mean, well, so Mormons have a weird sort of balance of, like, you can accept most science and be totally fine.
Sure.
Like, science, they value secular education.
Yeah, but the church is the one source of truth about God.
Right.
And about your place in the universe.
And
how to live a good life.
And if the church has a message that runs counter to anything else that you've believed, you got to go with the church's.
Church.
Yeah. All right, well, what's your conclusion?
We grew up in a cult.
We fucking grew up in a cult. God damn it. Not one of the worst ones. It's not, we weren't ever asked to kill anybody or to kill ourselves or anything, but we kind of fucking grew up in a cult.
Yeah, we did.
That feels yucky.
It does. Dan, you got to get...
you know what? I'm still hesitant on it. I'm at a 70%.
It's not like we started with. It's not a David Koresh, Branch Davidians type thing.
Right.
It's just not.
It's not.
Right. It's not that kind of cult.
No.
It's just a big nasty church that controls your life and doesn't want you to have friends outside of the church.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's culty.
Yeah.
It's really fucking culty. And that wants all your money, and it's culty, Dan.
It's a cult. It's kind of a cult. I'm uncomfortable with it, but it's kind of a cult. Okay. Well,
It's kind of cult.
yeah.
It's cult light.
It is. It is a light cult. It's a gentle cult.
No.
They're not. Look, when a cult. Look, for me
So here's the deal.
a
Dan.
hardcore cult, there's far more negative like consequences. There's rape, or there's abuses that are, and they're asking things of you that shouldn't be asked. They're controlling you in much more hardcore ways.
Right.
But I came out of it a little bit messed up on a few things. Sexually, I was confused and
On a severity level, you were correct. Like, if you could rank how truly harmful it is to your human spirit, right?
Yeah.
It is low on on that ranking, whatever that would be.
Sure.
Right? But it is there.
Yeah.
And it is harmful.
I think it does show up,
right?
for sure.
And it definitely shows up.
Yeah.
Also, there's extremism in certain religions that are out there that have corners of them that are also going to show up.
That are
on
cultish,
this,
yeah.
That are culty.
Yeah.
I
mean, I feel like what we've got is a sort of continuum. There's like a spectrum, and every religion is on this spectrum.
Mormonism is like Asperger's on this spectrum.
What the fuck? Oh my God. I don't think that was okay. I don't think what you just did was okay. Anyway, on the Kinsey scale of cultism,
I like spectrum disorder.
yeah, whatever.
Understand.
It's just not okay. Anyway, we grew up in a cult. That's kind of the final thing. That's what we've come to. I'm not comfortable with it. If you guys have anything that you want to say about this, if you want to yell at us and say, of course you were in a cult, or yell at us and say, no, it probably wasn't a cult, or anything else, please write into us, whatever your feeling is on the spectrum. You can write into us, podcast at thankgodimatheist.com.
Or call and leave us a voicemail message. The telephone number is 424-666-8442.
Yes. If your cult allows it, you can go to facebook.com and click on the like button, the Facebook TGI Atheist like button.
Yeah, you can also find our closed group on Facebook. That's also nothing culty.
Nothing culty at all about a very closed. We have to let you in.
You have to know the
total
you have to know the password.
Gatekeeper group, the members only lounge.
Also find us on Twitter and Reddit. The handle on both of those is TGI Atheist.
Speaking of social media, thanks so much to Mackenzie for handling our Facebook page, and thanks to Danny and Amy for their work as moderators of the members only lounge.
And a big thanks goes out to the Red Rock Hot Club for the use of their music, and to Gordon Johnston for the use of his music.
And thank all of you for tuning in. We sure appreciate you.
Bye-bye.